Good evening and welcome to Slam the Gavel, the show that tells it all regarding family court, other court, and CPS issues. I'm your host, Maryann Petri. And since 2016, Monica Shabonik has been coaching moms and dads as they navigate through the treacherous waters of the family law racket. Aside from workshops, which helps with specific problems, her 12-week signature course, The Best Interest of the Parent, uses a 4-quadrant model to create a robust healing and empowerment system so that you control the narrative in your life, not the state. Use coupon code SLAMTHEGAVEL to get 10% off the course. And you can find the website in the podcast notes. Right now, I have back on Slam the Gavel is Rosalind Sedacca, and she's the founder of Child-Centered Divorce Network and divorce and co-parenting coach. So we are going to talk about dating after divorce with children and what all of that entails. And we've got some very good information for everyone. So I welcome you back, Rosalind. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for the invitation.
Most definitely. I'm glad you came back on.
Thank you.
Now, when you date after divorce, how soon should you date after divorce?
Well, that's a good question to start because I think people sometimes move into dating way too soon. When you divorce, you could look at the experience as something very negative in life, or you could position it in a way that it's a positive place for you to reinvent yourself, reinvent your life, and start over, which is what I certainly suggest everyone does. And when you do that, you want to learn some lessons from your divorce. So you don't look back on it and say, oh, what a terrible experience in my life. If there's lessons that you take away from it, then it's a pivotal experience. It's an experience that's going to help you move ahead in the most productive way to give yourself a better future. And this is especially important if you do have children as well. So I say, look for the gifts. What are the gifts that you learned about yourself and your relationship and partners that you could move into a new relationship that's going to be healthier and longer lasting and fulfilling and rewarding for you? So jumping from your divorce into dating immediately doesn't do that for you. It doesn't give you the opportunity to be introspective, to do the inner work, the inner homework, and ask yourself, what part did I play in the breakup? What choices did I make that I regret now? How could I have done things differently, responded differently, chosen differently, reacted differently, made different decisions along the way that would have been better to support me, the relationship, and my kids? And what part did my partner play? Why did I choose this partner? What was I thinking at that time? What did I learn now so that I know the kind of partner I want to find again? Too many people get divorced and then divorced again and again because they find another partner with the same challenges and they go through the same patterns. You have to break your patterns, and that isn't always easy, but it's really worthwhile because it gives you the opportunity to find renewed love and a positive future ahead. So the first suggestion is to really take your time before diving into finding another relationship. Learn about yourself, learn the lessons that you need to learn, and the differences in who you are choosing to get involved with in your life. And once you do that, then you're going to avoid a lot of serious and painful mistakes that you may have made in the past. Then you're more able to move ahead and say, okay, now that I'm out there, what do I need to keep in mind in finding a new partner?
Yeah, most definitely. I know a lot of people jump into things really quick because they're lonely, or they just want to move on and get it going.
Yes.
And I just I guess after my divorce, I took my time. It took me was it 7 years till I got married again? Because you have to make sure whoever you're dating is compatible with your children.
There's the big important point, the most important point of all. When you're dating and you don't have children, then the only thing you have to think about is you and this new partner. When you have children, there's a whole other, sorry about that. there's a whole other entity in the equation that's very, very serious. And you need to make sure that you are thinking about, how is this relationship going to impact the children in my life, the children that I love, and make sure that the children aren't going to be impacted in a negative way by the relationship and partner decisions you make. So you really have to think about how your kids are, how prepared your kids are for you to bring someone new into your life. And then how prepared are you to have another partner, and how prepared is this partner to embrace not only you, but the fact that you are a parent. One of the biggest mistakes that I find parents making is that they aren't totally open and honest about their children on the first or second date, because they're so enamored with finding someone who's attractive, and they're excited about bringing love into their life. And they may start dating. And I really want parents to know that it's important to, right up front, say, I'm a parent, my children are these ages. You don't want to give them a lot of information because you're still talking to someone who's a stranger, but they should know the age of your children, the gender of your children, and how close they are to you in your life, and whether you have them full-time or part-time, and whatever that is, so that this new partner can decide whether this is a relationship I want to get into. By lying or misleading your partner, they're going to be very angry in a month or two to find out the situation is different than the way you revealed it. So be candid up front, and then you want to wait and do all your dating and relationships on the times when you are not with your children, when you have babysitters or your former partner is taking care of the children, so that you are not involved with the children meeting these new partners until you're very serious about the relationship, until you feel this is a keeper, this is a quality person who has character, the values, the morals, the integrity that's important for not only me in my relationship, but important for my kids in the relationship, and someone that I could feel good about introducing. So you want to date them for quite a while to see what kind of a person they are. Everyone is their best self the first few dates. And it's only after we get to know someone, get to see them when they're sick, or when they had a life challenge and they're under stress, and see what their personalities are like, is when you really get to know who it is you're with. And you want to make sure that you're doing that before you bring the children into the mix, because some of my clients become revolving doors, and there's a new partner every 4 or 6 weeks, and the kids get attached to certain people, and they get hurt by seeing people they like come and go, or they get confused. And you have to remember, it's most important thing for a parent to remember is that you are a role model for your children 24 hours a day. They're watching and learning from what you do. It isn't what you say to them, it's what they're seeing. And so you want to be really confident and secure about the relationship before you bring the children in, and then you move on to the next step.
I mean, when I started dating, I was totally upfront and honest. And I even went so far as to say, I have to be honest with you, I'm looking for a second husband. And I have these 3 kids, and I need someone who is going to take on those kids as if they were their own, even though they're not, you know. And I would do the disciplining. So if they sass you back, come to me and I will discipline them. So that's how I did it. That's probably why it took me so long to find a spouse. It took me 7 years, but I was upfront with everyone. I'm looking for a second husband.
Well,
And
I acknowledge you for doing that, for saying that. You did the right thing. And it is also, you did something that's very, very important for parents to understand. When you bring another partner into your life and your family life and your children's life, you should always be the disciplinarian, not this new partner. Kids are not going to respect and appreciate some stranger even after knowing them for 6 months or so, moving in even when they're a step parent. It's a different relationship. So you as the biological parent should be doing the disciplining and let this new partner be the icing on the cake, the adult who's a friend, who's fun, who's there to support them and be an adult in their life, but not the disciplinarian, because children very easily get angry and upset with another adult stepping in like a parent. Related to that, and equally important, is you don't want your children to ever feel that your new partner is replacing their other parent.
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as you may not like that other parent who you divorced, these children most likely do love that parent, and you want that relationship to continue. And you don't want them to feel that their parent is being thrown out of the picture.
Mm-hmm.
You now have someone new who's a partner in your life, which is a wonderful addition to your life, but they still have their other parent, their other mother, their other father, whoever that parent is. And when kids know that they have the security of still having a relationship with their first parent and their two parents, then they're much more readily able to embrace a new person in your life, a new person in your ex's life, who's coming into the picture, because they're not a threat.
Mm-hmm.
When kids feel threatened that someone is taking over, that's when they get very, very belligerent, antagonistic, and very angry and upset. And it makes the parenting relationship much more difficult for everyone in the family. And the kids are hurt. Mm-hmm. And we always want to have great compassion for what they're feeling, for their hearts, and the experience they're going through, because it isn't easy for children to be moving through a divorce, moving into what co-parenting means, watching their parents start dating another person, falling in love with another person, ultimately marrying another person. All of that is a process, and we need to be very compassionate and empathic with our kids as we help them move through those processes.
Mm-hmm. And also, I always kind of advise people not to move in with each other right away. And when I had met my future spouse, I had my own house, and I didn't want to leave it because I didn't want someone breaking into it. So I stayed in there for as long as I could. And several months before we got married, it was the hot summertime, and I did not have air conditioning. So my middle one said, I want to move in with him. He has air conditioning. I'm like, I don't want to leave the house. So we kind of went back and forth, and we did end up moving in a couple months before we got married. But the kid was happy. He had the air conditioning. Okay. But they also looked at him as like a big brother. It was like another older kid house.
Yeah, and that's the healthy kind of relationship. It sounds like you really did things in a very conscious way on behalf of the kids, and I'm sure they'll thank you when they're grown adults for doing it that way, because it just makes life a lot easier. And I agree with you. Moving in too soon with another person is not healthy. We have to really be mindful of how quickly the children are accepting and adapting to the other relationship. And it may be in a family when you have more than one kid that each child feels differently about this new relationship and reacts differently. And so you have to address each child according to their personality and how they're being impacted and affected by it all. Slow and steady and patient is very, very important when you're moving into a new relationship, when children are involved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because the children are also grieving over this divorce as well. And sometimes they don't show it, they may seem like they're just, happy-go-lucky or whatever, but, I think that's a good time to put them into counseling as well.
Yeah, well, you make a very good point. Children are grieving through all stages of the divorce. it's something they've never experienced before. It's a very difficult process to go through for anyone, and especially for children. And all of the unknowns make it even more frightening and intimidating and create a lot of anxiety. So they need to feel supported. That's why it's important to have extended family, for grandparents to stay in their life on both sides, cousins, other family members, friends, neighbors, schoolmates, all of that helps children get through the process, knowing they're not alone, knowing that they're supported, and also you're listening to them. You know, parents have a tendency to lecture more than listen. And it's very important, especially through divorce, for you to sit down eye level with your child and talk to them and hear what they're saying, because children are not necessarily articulate, excuse me, and they may not necessarily be expressing things the way an adult would. So you have to be listening carefully to what they're saying and mirroring it back so that you can find out if you're really getting the message right. Because sometimes you get confused and we're off kilter for what's really bothering them. But when you do hit it, they're very likely to nod their heads and say, yes, yes, that's how I'm feeling, and tell you more. And that's what you want. You want more and more information so that you can address their particular grievance, their particular fear, or the issue that's bothering them the most. And again, when you have more than one child, it could be several totally different issues, because children their personalities are different and they adapt differently. So you want to take everything slow. You want to listen and acknowledge their feelings. And if you can't do something the way they want it to be, because very often they're going to say, I want my daddy back, or I want things the way they were. I want to live in the other house. You have to be empathic and say, I wish we can do that. We can't. We have money issues, there's geographical issues, there's whatever the situation is, and mom's doing the best she can right now. And this is what we're going to do to compromise. And things may change next year or the year after that. So keep those dialogues going, because when kids don't feel heard, that's when they start acting out and getting aggressive or introverted in a way where they're turning within and getting depressed and not participating in activities anymore. You want to really monitor your children carefully, so you're watching them. Are they changing their behaviors? Are their grades in school changing? Their friends changing? Are they being more aggressive or less involved in their normal activities? All of those are signs that there are problems. The earlier you can catch those problems, the easier it is to address them and handle them before they become dramatic issues that can be very painful for everyone in the family. So be mindful, watch your children, and put yourself in your children's shoes as much as you can. How would I feel if I was little Johnny or little Susie? And how would I feel if this was happening to me? And what can I do in small ways to let them know that they're being heard, they're being supported, that I love them and I want the best for them. And these are life lessons that you're modeling for them. So even if things don't turn out the ideal way they want it, they're feeling that you care, you understand, they matter. Children can fall through the cracks. And it's very important when you're dating and in relationships, and especially if you're falling in love with someone, having been in a toxic relationship or an unfulfilling relationship for many years, when we finally find a new love partner, we can go gaga crazy. Being in love again is a wonderful thing. It opens the heart. It feels great. And sometimes we lose our mindfulness about our children. We lose track of how they're responding to it all because we are so infatuated with this new person. Listen to what your children are saying about your partner. Sometimes they're right and you're not. Sometimes they just need more time, or you need to change a tactic or strategy, or your new partner needs to say or do something that's going to win them over. What they're saying is an honest reflection of how they're feeling, whether you agree or not. And so if you dismiss it, it's like slapping your child in the face and dismissing them and saying what you're feeling doesn't matter, doesn't count. I don't care if you're feeling sad or if you don't like this person.
Mm-hmm.
Your kids need to know that your relationship with them will never change, and that they're first in your life, and that your relationship with your new partner is a different love, and it doesn't challenge your love for your children. One of the worst things in divorce is if your children start feeling a competition for your love and attention. There should not be a competition between your love partner and your children, because they're two different relationships, and your kids always need to know that you will love them forever and forever, and that no relationship is more important in your heart than them, because they're innocent and you brought them into this world, and they deserve your parenting love and attention. And for them to feel that suddenly someone else is more important to them is a very, very emotionally, psychologically painful experience for children that we don't want to put them through.
No. In fact, when shortly after the divorce and I was living in my house, we were coming out of the grocery store, and the oldest one said to me, "But Mommy, you don't have to get a divorce." And, I was holding hands with my oldest, and I said, I would never ask you to stay in a relationship with someone who treats you bad. Don't ask it of me. And school was starting, so I called the principal, and I said, "Do you have any counselor that can talk to my oldest one about divorce?" And she goes, "Oh, we have a program called Rainbows."
Whoa.
And it's for, kids that have maybe have a deceased parent or a divorced parent. She said, "I'm going to put this kid in that class, every day for several weeks, and I will let you know how things go." And so I said, "Well, I'm being guilted by my mother for getting this divorce." And she says, and the principal was so great. She goes, "I'm sick and tired of hearing of a parent being guilted by by their parent for getting a divorce." She says, "Knock it off. I don't want to hear that anymore." And so she did call me back in about like a month or so. And she said, "We're making great strides. She's come through this."
Yes, I love schools that have programs like that. Children having groups, knowing that there's other children going through it you're going through, is very helpful for them. Having empathic professionals who are talking to them and letting them know that they're not alone, and that they can have another ear to listen to what's going on for them, makes them feel supported. It's very beneficial usually for most children to have programs like that. And at the very least, as a parent, speak to your school guidance counselors and the teachers, and let them know this is what's happening. And to let you know, is my child behaving differently in school than they have been before? Because your teachers see them so much more than you do in a sense. And so they can pick up on things very easily. And you do need the support of the school system, as well as family and friends, so that everyone is just being mindful about watching your children and letting you know. I wish all schools had programs like that, because it does make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very normal and common for kids to feel, I wish you didn't get a divorce. Maybe there's some way I could fix it. You should fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's bring things back. It's very hard to explain that this is an adult matter, and we can't get into a lot of adult information with children, even teens, because once we share adult information, it changes them from being children or teens into being little mini adults, and they start having to think about your problems as if they had the ability to fix it or change it. And we all know that's impossible. So why put that burden on them? We have to explain that there's adult challenges that have happened in my relationship with your other parent, and we have decided that we need to move on in this way. And your other parent still loves you.
Mhm.
I still love you, and life will go on in the best possible way for everyone, because we're working on it to make it happen that way. But don't give them the feeling that there's any possibility of it changing.
Mhm.
Don't encourage them to believe that. They need to understand that this is something that's permanently different, and that life is full of changes. I always use the analogy that we change our grades in school and our teachers, we change our hairstyles and our sports and our hobbies and our fashions, and the seasons change. Life is full of change. This is a change in the form of our family, and we will always be a family, and your two parents will always be your two parents, but there's going to be some differences and changes in where we live, how we live, when you see your mother and father, and things like that. And we'll adapt to that. But change is normal in life, and what we're
Mhm.
doing this year will be different in 3 years and in 5 years from now. So this is the evolution in the process that we're going through. And the important thing to know is that you're loved and always will be loved,
Mhm.
and that we're going to protect you and take care of you, so you never have to worry about anything like that changing.
Mhm.
When children feel the security of knowing that both parents are still in their life in whatever level it turns out to be, that's a feeling of greater security, to know that they haven't lost their parents, and that neither parent is going to be divorcing them, which is a very frightening thought for children.
Mhm. 'Cause they don't know, depending on what age, they don't know what's going to happen next.
Exactly.
And I mean, I would hate to be a little kid in that position. Even I mean, mine were very, very little when I did this, but I mean, they were a witness to a lot of things that they had seen, and, and to why I had to get a divorce.
Yeah.
But I didn't discuss it with them. They were a witness to it. So,
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
still did not discuss it with them. And, I waited a while to even date after the divorce, because it's like I was so afraid
Hmm.
of running across some nutty pedophile. Because being a nurse and working in the ER, it's like all you ever heard was, "Oh, they're here." It was the mom's boyfriend, and it's like that always scared me. That
Yeah.
just scared me to no end.
How
So
yes, how frightening. And it made you alert. And as parents, we have to be very attentive and very alert. Sorry about that. Attentive and alert at all times, and nip things in the bud, so that they never feel insecure, they never feel that they're in danger. And of course, we want to make sure we never put our children in danger. That's why we have to move very slowly, because sometimes people seem to be one way and they turn out to be totally different,
mhm,
and it takes us time to figure that out. And so the children should be the last to be meeting people until we really feel secure about that relationship. We have to protect our children at all times. But it sounds like you made a lot of smart decisions, and I'm hoping our listeners will continue to make smart decisions along those same lines.
mhm, mm. Well, I've always said to myself, "Better to be alone than to be putting up with someone who's not treating you right, mistreating you, mistreating your kids." It's like, "I already went through that, we're not doing this again." You
Exactly.
know?
Yes. And it's a process of getting to know someone on a deep level of awareness, so that you're past the honeymoon madly in love stage into really getting to know this person and what they're truly like.
Mhm,
So again, slow and steady, taking your time with that, and testing the waters. And when you do introduce your children, we didn't discuss this, to a new partner, do it in very small intervals. It may be a lunch at a McDonald's for a half an hour, or a walk in the park,
Mhm.
or going to the zoo together. Small intervals where there's an end in that period of time, so that you can see how it went, listen to your children, get some feedback from them, and then slowly do that again several times, and be aware of interviewing your partner. You may be totally infatuated with this person, but talk to them about how they feel about children. Bring these children into their life. And again, if you are thinking of a partner that you want to be marrying, how are they going to feel about the responsibilities that they're taking on? It's an awesome task, and it's an awesome task. Being a step parent is a very challenging situation. It takes someone who really has high consciousness, who really cares and wants to do that, and hopefully will grow to really love your children and embrace them as part of the family. So you need to be asking those questions. I don't know why this is not.
Mhm.
Need to be asking those questions on a consistent basis, so that you're feeling secure and comfortable in knowing that you're picking someone who really does love and care about your children.
Mhm.
And we sometimes we make mistakes, and sometimes we have regrets in that. But having been through a divorce, if you have the lessons you've learned, you should be making better selections and choices. And that's part of what you want to be doing down the line, is using the wisdom that you've learned from the past, bringing it into your new relationships, so that it's going to be better for you, better for your children, and lead to a bright future and a lasting love relationship, which is what we all want and all deserve.
Mhm. And also, I mean, it's, some people have a very hard time at finding another spouse. And I mean, if it takes you 4 years, if it takes you 12 years, some things are worth waiting for because you don't want to go through another disaster.
Yes. I totally agree with you. And yes, I was single for 8 years before I met my husband. Well, I dated him for 3 years before we got married.
Mhm.
And my son was an older teen, and he totally embraced the man that I ultimately married again, and loves him. But he never replaced his dad. My son still had a close relationship with his father. So whenever I had a relationship partner who I was getting close to, and I was involved in a few close relationships before I ultimately met my husband and married him.
Mhm.
Um, my son never felt threatened because no one was replacing dad. That relationship was solid for him. It's much more challenging for kids when they don't have a good relationship with their other parent to begin with, and then the stranger is coming in, and or if the stranger is too aggressive in trying to replace the other parent and act like the other parent. So the age of your child matters, their personality matters, how they felt about the divorce. All of that plays a part in how receptive they are to embracing someone new in your life. Acknowledge them, listen to them, don't make them wrong,
Mhm.
let them feel heard even if you don't agree. And reach out to professionals. Child psychologists hear these problems all the time. They're adept at letting kids talk to them and opening up to them and reassuring children in ways that other adults can't. So it's worth moving ahead and getting the support of a divorce professional or a child psychologist professional who can be there step by step and help unravel some of the challenges that you may be facing.
Mhm. And I know that one of my children said, "Well, are we gonna have his last name?" And I said, "No, it doesn't work that way." I said, "Your father's last name is your last name until either you get married or whatever. So
Hmm.
you'll always have his last name."
But those are the kind of questions. That was a good question. It's an important question to children, and all they need is to be acknowledged and heard. Yes, that question makes sense. Let me give you an answer to that, and encourage them to ask questions, because if you don't encourage your children to ask you questions, then they're going to go elsewhere for answers.
Mhm.
And it's very important that they still respect you as their parent enough to ask you first about those kinds of things.
Mhm.
And I highly, highly recommend embracing keeping both sets of grandparents in their lives whenever that's possible.
Mhm.
If they have a loving relationship with family on the other side, even though you're divorced, don't cut that off from the children, because the love of family members is very important for children. And it's even more hurtful if suddenly people who they were close to are abolished from their life,
Mhm.
and they can't see and be with them anymore.
Mhm. Mhm. And they also make great babysitters.
Absolutely. Extended family, yes. The most trusted babysitter. So that's
Yes,
another,
very.
yes.
Yeah, I was fortunate I didn't have to use a daycare when I did work because both sets of grandparents were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my ex-mother-in-law, one of my children was sick and I had to be at work. And so she took the child to the doctors. I was grateful for her to do that.
Yes.
And I said, call me and tell me what happens. And so, she did. And so everything, it was just, it worked out really well. So,
It takes a village. It really
yeah.
does. And you don't want to close doors in regards to family and friends who can help and support you, unless there's some really dramatic reason why you have to. Otherwise, keep those doors open and those relationships open for you.
Most definitely. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of the basics. There's many things to pay attention to when choosing your next partner, and you want to really make sure that you're focusing more on character and quality,
Mhm.
and less on what might have been the first time around, looks and sexual chemistry and things like that, which are wonderful and fun, but they don't make for lasting long loving relationships necessarily. So be very careful in choosing someone who really is authentically who they are, and someone you feel safe with, someone you feel respected by. Respect is one of the most important facets of a relationship,
Mhm.
and it's one of the first indications of a relationship gone toxic or sour, is when one or both partners lose respect for the other partner.
Mhm.
So you want to be really looking for someone that you feel not only loves you, but respects you and honors you and has your best interest at heart, and someone who's a soft shoulder to fall on, because life is tough. We all have difficult, challenging experiences in life, and you want to come back at the end of the day and have a partner with whom you feel totally comfortable in just being yourself, crying, hugging, being there for one another
Mhm.
and for your kids. And that's someone that it takes a while to really get to know and trust on that level. So don't rush into relationships,
Mhm.
and ask yourself the important questions. Is this someone who is really there for me? Is this someone who is showing me only their best side, or are they authentically, honestly, the way they are? Are they presenting a facade, or are they legitimately a person who is loving and cares for and about me? Do they have an agenda? Are there red flags that I'm overlooking because I'm so madly in love? And take your time to answer those questions, and ask friends and family, because sometimes you'll get insight from them. You may not want to hear it, but they're looking at your relationship partner from a different perspective than you, and that can be very helpful for you as well.
Most definitely. And even even their parents. I mean, I was just very fortunate when I met my spouse because I had also known his sister for 15 years.
Ah, yes.
And I didn't realize it. And, we had this blind date and we had talked on the phone. He says, "You know someone who used to work at this workplace where my ex had worked." And I was like worried, like, who is this? Who could this have been? And then when I sat down to meet him for coffee, he said, "This is the person." And it's like, oh my God, that's Darlene.
Wow.
I've known her for 15 years. How come she never told me about you? It was this really, so I
Yeah,
knew he was coming from a stable environment. I also
exactly.
I knew his parents were normal and they were mentally sound and stable.
Makes a big difference. Makes a big difference.
Yes.
I wanted to offer our listeners the opportunity to get a free ebook that I have um, on answers to your most frequently asked dating and relationship questions, and it's found at womendatingafter40.com. That's 40. Womendatingafter40.com, and right on the homepage is that ebook that you could just instant download with your email address.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. I'm so glad you came on. And I'll put in the same details as how you want to be reached.
Wonderful. I appreciate that.
Yes. So thank you for coming back on Slam the Gavel. Okay, Slam the Gavel is a podcast to help the public understand what really goes on in the family courtrooms. I'm your host, Maryann Petri, author of Dismantling Family Court Corruption, Why Taking the Kids Was Not Enough, and Cry Out for Justice, Poems of Truth. And please join us again in the future with Rosalind and other exciting guests. And I appreciate it, Rosalind. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.